I'm just gonna put that down there. Hey everyone, looks like I got my webcam working. I don't know what happened the last time, but it's working now. All right, okay, so I'm probably only gonna be streaming for about half an hour or an hour. If you have any feedback about what I can do better or differently, just save it till the end. I would love to hear it. And I would love your suggestions on other topics you might want to hear me talk about. For those of you who don't know me, I've been a software developer for a long time. I do a lot of Python and Git and web application development, so happy to talk about any of those topics. So the thing that folks are most interested in is my terminal. I posted a screen cap of this on Twitter and it got a lot of likes and retweets. I've actually been messing with it a little bit based on some suggestions that folks posted. So unfortunately, I'm not a big Windows person, so I know my way around, but I don't know how to make my terminal super fancy. For that, Scott Hanselman has a really, really good blog post, and I'll post a link to that in the chat later on. So this tutorial kind of applies to folks on Mac OS or Linux. I personally am using the latest version of OS X, so I'm on Catalina. And there's kind of only one prerequisite for getting started here. It's a piece of software that I use called Brew. If you're using Linux, you probably have your own package manager like Yum or apt-get, so you should be able to install the packages that we're talking about, but for Mac I use Brew. And for those of you who don't know what Brew is, it started out as a package manager for Mac, but now it's really just the package manager for Mac. It works really, really well. So if you want to grab it, you can just use brew.sh. And I know this is kind of scary to just copy and paste this command and into your terminal. You know, if you really want to, you can take a look at this file and see what their setup script is doing. If Brew's homepage ever gets hacked, I think a lot of developers will be in trouble. But once you have Brew installed, you can use it as a tool to install both applications on the command line. And I feel like a lot of folks don't know this. You can use Brew to install just like regular Mac applications as well. So the terminal software that I'm using is called iTerm. So this is not the default macOS terminal app. It has a lot of really, really nice upgrades, things like being able to sync your profiles and your settings to a file, which I'll show you a little bit later on. There's better support for remapping keyboard shortcuts and keys and stuff like that. So tons of upgrades from the regular just macOS terminal. And once you have Brew, if you want to install iTerm, you can use Brew Cask, which is a tool that allows you to install those. Oh, hi folks, thanks for following. Brew Cask is a tool that allows you to install not just command line tools, but also visual tools. So you can do Brew Cask install. I think it's just iTerm and not iTerm 2. If I type this in, let's see what happens. My computer's thinking about it. Hi. It's really great to see so many folks joining and coming to hang out with me. I was pretty terrified that I would be in here alone, and this is like, that would be just like next level internet awkward for me. So it looks like the stream is taking up all of my bandwidth, but we can see here that the Cask iTerm is not available. Did I mean iTerm 2? Yes, I did. So if you install Brew and you do a Brew Cask install iTerm 2, I'm going to try this again. You'll see that it just kind of no ops for me because I already have it installed. But for those of you following along, that's kind of your first step. The really nice thing about using a tool like Brew is it can make your environment reproducible. So I can put this brewcask install iterm2 command in a file. Hey Clark.io, he happens to be a coworker, so good to see you here. The nice thing about using brewcask or Brew in general is that you can make these commands reproducible, and that way if you have to set up your computer again, you don't have to visit all the download pages for all these various applications that you use. You can just write a script. And I did write a script to do that. It lives at git.io/newcomputer, I believe. So this is a setup script that just reinstalls a fresh Mac computer, basically exactly how I like it. For the script in particular, I really recommend reading it before you run it because it does a lot of things that are, might work for me, maybe not for you. It does things like it adds my SSH key to GitHub via an API. It installs all of the apps that I use, like the developer tools that I use. Here we see iterm2, all of the command line tooling, some development tools that I use. So I'm going to drop a link to this repository in the chat in case anyone is interested. Okay, someone asks, can I move the video to the right or make the windows smaller just so we can read what's on the bottom left? Yes, I can. Let's see. How about that? I'm going to try to move it to the right, and then if that is still kind of not working or it's still blocking important stuff, just let me know and I will make it smaller. Cool. Sorry for other folks posting links. I turned on some automatic chat moderation, so it might be maybe a little bit aggressive. So my apologies. I'm sure I have some tweaking to do. But this is my new computer setup script, so there's a little bit of information about resources that I borrowed from, and a command that will let you just kind of install it from the terminal, just like you can with Brew. Unfortunately, my .dot files aren't backed up here for the moment, but they will hopefully be in the future. And I just posted that repo. You all tried to, oh no, you all tried to share the link that I was using, and a bunch of you got timed out. All right. Thing to note for next time, add GitHub to the list of approved URLs. I'm gonna make a note of that so that y'all can share code. Okay. So that getting iterm installed is kind of the baseline here. Let me show you what would be a good thing to show next. Let me show you all some of my iterm settings, and then I'm gonna go into Z shell. So like I said, the nice thing about iterm2 is that all of your settings are synced. So if you go into the iterm preferences here, let me make sure that's visible. I believe it's under general. Let's see. Nope, I think it's under advanced. Let me see. I just did this the other day and already forgot where it is. Nope, that's not it. Computers, right? How do they work? here we go. Okay, I found it. So I opened my iTerm preferences and I had to go to General and the Preferences tab. And looks like it's accidentally pointing to the wrong one, but I do have an iTerm Profiles directory that my settings sync to. And this is part of a .files GitHub repository I have that is private because it's just kind of been my dumping ground for all sorts of stuff. And while I never keep secrets or anything like that in my .files, I'm sure there's, you know, stuff that just needs to get cleaned out. So I do have these .files backed up in GitHub. And then I sync my preferences to a file. And apparently you can also do it from a URL, so you can maybe dump your iTerm profiles in a gist or something like that. And I also, it seems like, you know, I have a wrong path here, but if this was correct, I would have a checkbox here that allows me to save these changes to that folder when iTerm 2 quits. So my settings are always in sync. And the next step when setting up a new computer after running that new computer setup script is grabbing my .files from GitHub. I don't have to set up SSH keys because that's already set up in my new computer script. So I can just grab that repository. And let me show you guys a script that I found. I did not write it, but whoever did write it, thank you so much. It is this one. And I'm using a VS Code here, by the way, for anybody who's interested. So there's a make symlinks script that I found a few years ago. I'm sure if somebody Googles around, they might be able to find it, although careful, don't post the GitHub link in the chat because my auto moderator is turned way up. I'm sorry. So this backs up all of the .files that I have in this .files directory and symbolic links them into my home directory. This allows me to keep all of these files synced up in GitHub, and it allows me to incrementally kind of save my changes, because I'm sure you all have been in this place where you've added or removed a bunch of stuff from your .files and it broke everything. So this is kind of my solution for that. Hi folks, thanks for following. Let's see, somebody asked if there's an iTerm equivalent in Linux. I think that would really depend on your Linux distribution. So if anyone has suggestions, please post them in chat. Also, Thea has good jokes. Cool, so that's how I keep everything in sync. The other nice thing about iTerm is profiles. So unfortunately, you can't see my top menu item here, but in iTerm, I'm clicking on profiles and then open profiles. You can also hit Command O to make this pop up. And you'll see, because I've been using this iTerm sync for a long time, I have a bunch of profiles, but basically anytime I make a change and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna like that or not, I just duplicate my profile and make a new one. I also have different profiles for things like demos. So my demo profile just bumps the font up really big. And if I double click that, you'll see, ooh, that does not play well with my new prompt at all. I'll have to sort that out before my next demo. But if I double click on that profile, it will open it up. So let's take a look at the one that I'm using now. There's the colors tab, which is important here. iTerm allows you to import color presets, and you can't really see it here because this box is so long, but I just have like, let's see, here we go. Looks like my webcam's in the way. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different colors. And if you all think I have too much time on your hands and I made all of these, I did not. There's a really great GitHub repository for just like a compilation of colors. The one that I've been using lately is called Darkula. And let me post those GitHub repos for you. So the first is it's called iTerm Color Profiles. Ooh, someone posted a link, but like with spaces in between and a .com. It seems like my auto moderator is not that smart. But here, let me go ahead and post that for all of y'all. So there are just like hundreds of color schemes here, and the really nice thing about this repository is there are screenshots. So you don't have to go through clicking on each and every single one to, wondering what they might look like. That's all available here. The other thing that you're going to need to set up is your font. So for the time being, I'm using, I believe just Menlo, although I do have a font that I like quite a bit called Trim Mono. And I'll reopen these. Oh, of course, here we go. Wrong profile selected. I've now selected the right one. So the font that I'm using is Trim Mono. I found this font in a presentation software that I use, and I liked it so much that I purchased it. Unfortunately, it is not, it's for sale, and the creators put a lot of work into it. It's not super cheap, but I've been coding for 10 years and this font is the font. So if you have a little bit of extra cash to spare and you're kind of as into it as I am, you can purchase it here. But if you noticed, there are two places to define fonts. One is just your regular font, but it's really important for us to also have a non-ASCII font selected. So that's the font that gives us all of these nice little symbols that generally aren't included with a regular font. And these types of fonts are called patched fonts. And again, someone did something awesome and just created a repo with tons of patched fonts. So this one has 19K stars. It seems like quite a few folks have found it pretty useful. Here we go. So someone's talking about .sexy domains. I used to own ninja.sexy. I never put anything on it, and unfortunately at this point I have let it go. It's gone to wherever domains go to die. Cool. So now you have your iTerm set up. You have your colors, how you like them. You have your font selected. If any of you have any fonts that you love or are a huge fan of, please feel free to post them in the chat. Yeah, I know. Could have put something up at that domain and it just didn't happen. So you're kind of most of the way there. My next step in getting my shell set up for productivity was switching away from Bash. So Bash is the default shell program that comes installed on Mac and Linux. It's reliable and works kind of how you would expect it to, but unfortunately it's not very customizable. So there are other shell alternatives. I know quite a few folks use fish shell, which is Thea's terminal of choice or shell program of choice, but I switched to Z shell. And Z shell is something that you can install with Brew. I don't know if it's ZSH or just Z shell. I think Brew has, let's see, like a search command for searching for packages. So Z shell in itself is awesome, but then there's this additional package manager / plugin manager called OhmyZSH that works with Z shell to do some pretty awesome things. And let me drop a link to that for everyone. Wow, that might be the most stars I've ever seen a package have. OhmyZSH has 102,000 GitHub stars. Oh, Spooky Teapot 13 says that they think that Z shell will be the new default in macOS in a coming update. So that's actually really cool. So looking at OhmyZSH here, it's community driven. There are 1,500 contributors. There's a nice plugin system for a lot of the tooling that you might use. And it's pretty easy to install. So I like their disclaimer here. OhmyZSH will not make you a 10x developer, but you may feel like one. So maybe it'll make you feel energized. So installation instructions here, it's pretty easy to get via curl or wget. The nice thing about OhmyZSH is their auto updater, so it's pretty easy to stay up to date. The README and the plugins and the help files, everything is really fantastic. So I'm not going to go searching through my configuration for my plugins because there be dragons, but I use Git and a few Python ones like pyenv as well. OSX has some nice handy shortcuts. And like it says here, most of these plugins do include a README. So let's see if we can find the OSX one. So this will give you a few new commands in your Z shell. All you have to do is add it to your plugins list. Things like opening the current directory in a new Finder tab, or controlling your Apple Music from the command line, controlling Spotify. I mean, each of these plugins is so feature rich that unless you devote a lot of time to it, you know, you'll probably have a hard time using all of the features in every plugin, but they are available. Oh, Thea said that Z shell is the default as of Catalina. I actually did not know that, so that's super cool. Awesome. Oh, Anthony says, if anyone likes bananas, his daughter made a Z shell and terminal theme. Let's take a look at this. Again, sorry for my aggressive auto moderator. Oh, I missed a space. I'm just pressing buttons now. I have no idea what I'm doing. All right, let's see here. Oh, hi, a new follower. Welcome, welcome. She says, this is a banana theme that I hope you like. I have loved bananas all of my life. And then there are like 100 banana emojis. And the terminal prompt is a banana. Anthony, your daughter is living her best life. I love it. In fact, I'm going to start this repository. I'm not signed in. This is my demo Chrome profile, by the way, which I recommend for absolutely everyone if you don't want folks to see your embarrassing browser history. I always have a demo Chrome profile that is really just like bright, has a bright theme, so I can tell it apart. But I just went and started in a logged in window, so now it has 8 stars. I love this. It's so blue and yellow. Cool. So now that you have Oh My ZHS set up, Oh My ZSH, can't talk, should drink some water. There is one additional plugin that I like. I don't remember where I picked this up from, but from those of you who have been following along, it might be a little bit hard to tell, and let me make sure this is kind of in the stream window. So can everyone see when I type, there are some auto suggestions that come up in like a really light or really dark gray font. It almost blends in with the background. So this is like Oh My I can't say it. Oh My ZSH plugin that provides some fish-like abilities. So this allows me to hit the right arrow key if my terminal is selected to complete that phrase. And I was going to look up what that plugin was before the stream, and then I forgot. So let's see how strong my Google Foo is. I'm going to go for that. Yeah, my Google Foo is strong. Okay, so this is the plugin that I use, and there's a nice little GIF here that shows it in action. And I find it really, really useful. Look at Z-Shell pretending to be fish. Ha ha ha. All right. This is kind of a nice add-on to a terminal feature that I already use. So I wish I could kind of see a stream show of hands, but maybe y'all can tell me in chat, how many of you know about Control R and Control S in the terminal? Anyone? Do you use that regularly? It's kind of one of my favorite shell features. I think it's in Bash as well, although somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But these are keyboard shortcuts taken from Emacs. And let me see if I can get my Keycaster app going so that you all can see my keyboard shortcuts. I just got Catalinaed. So catastrophic error occurred when I tried to open the software that I use for showing my key taps. All right, let me try to make this work. Security and privacy. Man, this is rough. I just did a completely fresh reinstall of my operating system, so not recovering from a backup like that or anything like that. And the amount of dialog boxes that I have seen in the past few days is it's pretty crazy. Okay. looks like I can't get this software to work. So maybe I will just give up on it for now. Come on, Keycaster. No, I'm going to give up on this. Well, Keycaster is usually an awesome piece of software. I'm going to say that my issue in setting it up today is definitely user error. But Control R and Control S are actually Emacs shortcuts. So Control R is someone pointed out, a very useful BCK-I-search. But if you start typing into this, you'll actually notice it's pulling up line items from my history. And I can keep pressing Control R here, and it will continually pull up items from my command line history. So you can see here, this is maybe 6 or 7 history items back that match the term Bruce Space. That's when I installed OBS yesterday, because I promised that I would stream for everyone. If you hit Control S in this view, it's going to search forward in history. So you'll see here that this is from earlier in the stream when I was searching for iTerm and it didn't come up. When I hit Control S, it matches the next item that I entered that matches this expression, which was actually doing brewcask install iTerm 2. So I probably use this dozens of times a day. You don't need any special plugins or anything like that to get started with this particular tip. But I still do like this OhmyZSH plugin that does this auto suggest, because I don't have to scroll back and forth, and then I can just kind of right arrow to put that in. If you want to exit that search window, by the way, just hit Control C and that should exit you out of it. Cool. So just like iTerm, where you can set up different color profiles, one of the strengths of OhmyZSH is not just its plugin ecosystem, but it also has support for theming. So let's go back here. It says OhmyZSH. I'm just going to stop saying it because I can't say it today. I'm going to call it Oh My, and all of you who are in the stream are just going to know what I'm talking about. But if we search here for themes, we will get to this section of the README. And you'll see a little notice here, like I said earlier, a lot of these themes will require installing a Powerline font. So you'll have that link to patched fonts. Let's see, someone asked in chat, as someone who's used Windows since 3.1, is ZSH and Fish like Bash but different? Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. They are all different shell programs, and they are they all have different functionality, but all you need to do is set your shell basically once, and then your terminal will respect that at each startup. And if I open up VS Code, this is the make symlinks shell script that I've been using. And the last thing that it does here is install zshell, which is this function here. So it checks for zshell, checks for OhmyZSH. If it's not there, it will install it. But the item of note here, and let me bump up my font, is this chsh command -s. So this command, running which will show you. I'm going to open up the terminal here in VS Code so that you can see it on one screen. So this running this command, which ZSH will output the location of that executable, and then running chsh-s will set the shell to that executable. So basically one of the first things that I do when setting up a new computer is setting up the shell to Z shell. But going back to Oh My ZSH themes, there are tons of them. I like this little bit in the README. We'll admit it, early on in the Oh My world, we may have gotten a bit too theme happy. They have over 100 themes now bundled, and a lot of them have screenshots on the wiki. I think this is a screenshot of the default one, assuming that you have a patched Powerline font set up. Apparently you can also set your theme to be random. I feel like that would just give me a lot of anxiety, or you can select some random theme candidates as well. But looking at their wiki, there are just tons and tons and tons of themes. Like really, you know, I don't want to make you all dizzy with the scrolling, but like you can scroll on this page for a very, very long time. And I'll drop that link in the chat. Cool. So the theme that I used for a long time until someone on Twitter recommended something better is called Power Level 9K. And this is the theme that allows me to have these terminal displays on the left-hand side. So let's say the tilde button on my keyboard is sticky. So let's say I cd into like my dot files repository. That's where all of these status displays come from. So I have a few set up on the left. I have some set up on the right-hand side. This check mark is whether the command executed successfully or not. Some of you might have noticed if I press Control-C, that gives me the error code that the last command returned with, the time, my battery, and then the load on my computer. So all of this is from Power Level 9K. And just like a lot of stuff I'm showing you today, there are a lot of options, but you still shouldn't really find that particularly intimidating. All of the repositories I'm linking to today have like really, really good readmes, and the default configurations get you 90% of the way there. So just because there's a lot to read here, don't be afraid. So there's an installation guide and installation instructions for installing both the theme and the fonts. And then there are a lot of options for styling your prompt as well. So there's one variable, and you set these variables in your .zshrc file in your home directory. This is the list of values for the segment on the left-hand side. This is the list of values for segments on the right-hand side. There are a bunch of different segments available, like, you know, the system date, your IP, whether you're on VPN or not. You can share your free RAM and OS icon. So mine shows a little Apple icon, but if you're on Linux, I bet you would see a penguin. Your prompts, VI editing mode, your current username. So you can like really heavily customize this. There is segments for your version control. So if you're in a Git repository or a Mercurial repository, if anyone still uses Mercurial, that VCS setting would show you your version control information, what branch you're on, etc. And then there are also a lot of language specific segments. So Go, JavaScript, PHP, Python, things like your Python virtual environment, or Pyen, like my active Python version. So let's see if I do Pyen versions. I'll see which ones I have available, and I can do like a Pyen shell and set it to that. And then you'll see that now my prompt has changed. Have a snake emoji for Python because I am just that creative. And then it shows what Python version I'm on. If I'm using a virtual environment and Pyen, I'll actually see two different segments for each one. So, sorry to offend anyone still using Mercurial Thea. So that's how I have my power level 9K configured. And before I drop in and show you some of my configuration, I want to show y'all something that I found via Twitter. I don't remember who pointed it out to me the first time, but whoever you are, thank you. There's a package called Power Level 10K. Apparently these packages just go up in version number by 1K each time. It's also a theme for ZSH, but it's supposedly a drop-in replacement for Power Level 9K that is a lot faster. It says when given the same configuration options, it generates the same prompt. I found that that wasn't necessarily the case. Like, some of the spacing in my prompt was kind of funky, but this was an awesome speed improvement. So I want to share that discovery with all of you. Okay, cool. So stuff to play around with. Let me show you some of my config. And kind of move stuff around a little bit, so don't mind all of the color in the sidebar. That's just my Git complaining that it's these changes are uncommitted. So tempted to drop all of this in a gist, but what I'm going to do instead is clean this up so it looks a little bit nicer, and I'm going to write a blog post about everything that we talked about today next week. Unfortunately, I have some travel coming up, so I don't have time to do it this week, but next week, I promise you'll see a blog post. I post my blog posts on my website at nnja.io, and then I usually cross-post to dev.to as well. I will tweet about it, so if you want to stay in the know, you can follow me on Twitter as well. My username is nnja. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, a nice setting that I definitely didn't write this, I found this somewhere, but these lines will colorize the top tabs of iTerm to be the same color as my terminal background. So if I open new tabs, I believe in default iTerm they're just like white or black or something like that, but this makes them a little bit nicer. It makes them blend in with my terminal background. I have a little bit of conditional code here. Sometimes I run Emacs on the command line. And if I'm doing that and opening a terminal in Emacs, I really don't want a lot of fancy stuff in there. So I I have a simpler theme that I use for inside of Emacs. Otherwise, you can see my most recent change here was just commenting out my power level 9K ZSH theme and dropping in power level 10K. And then I'll show you some of these settings that I have. So let me see if I can get this maybe like a little bit more side by side with my prompt. Can't really see my right-hand side prompt here, but all right, we'll see if this becomes an issue. If folks can't see, just let me know in chat. Oh, Thea said she has a script that sets the iTerm tab color based on which directory or workspace she's in, and that's really helpful. That does sound pretty cool. Maybe she can share her configuration. Before I completely wiped my computer, I had these really nice badges in iTerm 2 that would display an emoji overlay based on which directory I was in, but unfortunately, oh, none of these look nice. Let me clear the screen there. Unfortunately, I don't have that file on my local computer at the moment, so I'll include some screenshots of what that might look like in the blog post. Kerm asked if I'm going to keep doing the live stream and programming streams, so you would definitely subscribe. I think so. I mean, are folks having a good time? Like, are folks in the chat learning a lot? This kind of seems like I'm just showing stuff off to friends, but I'm not sure if you know, if folks are getting a lot out of it, I think I'd be happy to keep doing it. What does everyone think? Yes, no, maybe so. Quiet. Oh, thumbs up. Okay, awesome. Kerm said, this is awesome, but I know so much more. It's true. Y'all should see me write some Python. Awesome. I'm really glad folks are learning a lot and having a good time. Yeah, I guess folks are most successful at this if they keep a consistent schedule, but I don't really know when are good times for folks, like the weekends, after work. People are spread across so many time zones that it feels pretty hard to, I don't know, figure out a time when most folks are available. Like, I feel this is maybe borderline and kind of late. Folks on the East Coast are probably winding down for bed. So if you have any suggestions on when you watch streams, let me know as well. I think that I could probably have a New Year's resolution of doing this maybe every week or so on a different topic. But I want to quickly go through some of my power level 9K settings, and then I want to chat quickly about backgrounds and probably call it good for now because we've been talking for almost an hour at this point. Thea said I should live stream program in lol code. I don't know what that is. Stumping me. Should I look it up? I'm kind of afraid. I might look it up after the stream and see what lol code is all about. But there are a few things I wanted to point out here. Something I really like about power level 9K, like I like having all this stuff in my prompt. It's useful information, but if I'm trying to type in this like tiny little space, it's really annoying. So one of the first things that I did was make my prompt show up on a new line. And if I type things, it also, what's going on here? It also adds a new line after the command as well. I find that a little bit easier to read and differentiate. I have this annoying Unicode character for my prompts. Hey Grapho, thanks for following. I don't know why, that reminds me of Elfo. There's a funny show on Netflix called Disenchanted, and it's by a lot of the folks who did Futurama and a lot of the same voice actors. So Grapho, you remind me of Elfo. Anthony asks if I can post my ZHRC into a gist. I will next week for the blog post. As you can see by random things that are commented out, my dot files are unfortunately a bit of a mess. I've been wanting to clean them up for like a while now, and I haven't had the motivation. So this will be my motivation to clean it up enough to share with folks. So keep an eye out for the blog post. This is my list of prompt elements on the left and right. I have my time format specified. I have the set of colors that I use for the load. So you can see here, I bet OBS is doing not awesome things to my computer because this icon here is red. When nothing is running on my computer, it's green, and medium load is yellow. So that just kind of sets up all of these colors. Something new that I added based on what folks posted in Twitter is this like directory shortening strategy. So I think this is also stolen from Fish. So the actual directory here is users, Nina, projects.files, but this shortening strategy will shorten, I think, just the first left-hand character of these directories, because generally I don't need to see that full path. And if for some reason I do, I can always PWD. So I've been using that lately. The shortening strategy is truncate from the right with a length of 1 and a delimiter of empty string. Yeah, this is all commented out because obviously I do a good job of cleaning up my dot files. So I'll clean all this stuff up before I post it in the blog, but I have a snake emoji set up for my Python version, very important, and then some settings for things like my foreground and my background. You know, I tried Fish and I just couldn't get the hang of it. So maybe I'll try it again, but not anytime soon. Sorry, not sorry. Cool. So I think that covers my shell. It covers iTerm. I told you all about using Brew for package manager, about syncing your settings. I showed everyone my new computer setup script, which you are welcome to use and modify. Just please read it before you run it, because it, like I said, it does some funky things that I like. So, you know, I'm not tech support. If you run the script and it does something weird, I won't fix your computer. I'm sorry. So use at your own risk, but it seems like a project that quite a few folks have found useful. So I'm really happy to see that. I will drop a link to that again in case anybody wasn't here and missed it. The last thing I wanted to talk about was backgrounds. Folks really liked my Vaporwave backgrounds. Actually, I moved a bunch of those files around, so looks like my background disappeared before the stream. Kind of worked out because it's a little bit distracting, but I just opened my iTerm profiles, and all I would have to do here is enable a background image, and I'm just gonna drag that off the screen and make sure that I'm not pulling anything up that shouldn't be up. So I just selected a file here, and there's different modes that you can play around with. I'm not sure that I can really kind of play around with these and have you all see my screen, but there's blending, so like how much you want it to blend into the background or not. There's if you want it scaled to fill or scaled to fit, or tiling or stretching. There's a lot of different options here. I find that scale to fill tends to look best. And there's also a bit of transparency to your window appearance if you wanted to see through to my background. But the main thing about background images here, and I'll share some of these. Someone said they can hear the image. Oh, thanks for watching, Clark.io. See you next time. I'll probably be wrapping up in like about 5 minutes, folks. So in case you're worried about having to stay up late, I think we're almost done. So I'm glad folks are enjoying this. The most important thing about any background images that you might find, there's like a lot of wallpaper sites out there. Try to do what you can to check for the license and the terms of use for the images that you find. Depending on where you find them, the authors might want attribution, or there might be terms in the license preventing you from making changes, for example. So try to check your licenses. If you find your image on some website and you aren't really sure what the license is or what the original source is, I tried to spend a little bit of time trying to find the original image and the original author so that I can respect their licensing. Two good resources for doing that are TinEye, and I'll type that into the chat, and also images.google.com. So if I go to images.google.com here, I can click on the search by image button, and I can either paste in a URL or upload an image. And sometimes I kind of have to scroll around a bit, but resources for original images might be things like DeviantArt, where you can find the artist, and let's say you use this background image every day for a year and you love it and you look at it all the time, maybe support the artist and buy something. So some good resources for Vaporwave backgrounds. One is an artist called Axiom Design, and I'll post a link to his DeviantArt here. So there are some really sweet backgrounds here, like this electric impact, or this really awesome neon sunset. And then some of these are like super widescreen, you know, 7,000 pixels wide. Like, that's pretty amazing. He also has some fun animations that you can look at. Look at that go. I'm pretty into it. The artist's Instagram is there as well. It's a little bit hard to read, but that's one awesome resource for backgrounds. There's also King-Lulu-Deer, like also on DeviantArt. I mean, look at this. I love this background image. It's a little bit less vaporwavy and more like neon pop punk. PIQ9117 asked if they're publishing it under Creative Commons. That really depends. Each artist will have their own licensing terms. So I know that I've looked at Axiom Arts or Axiom Designs, and you can kind of see his terms in his bio. or here we go. So there's a whole section here on DeviantArt for this particular artist. That's copyright info, notes for use. So there's some information here. So he's saying, you know, most of it is Creative Commons, attribution, non-commercial, share alike, but he personally has a few extra conditions. So, you know, he asks if you post his work to link it back. So, you know, each artist will have their own licensing preferences. It's up to you to kind of be a good internet Samaritan and do your best to respect them. This kind of took me a while, but the images that I found, that I posted on Twitter for my background, I actually found the source to be this Imager post, and these are pulled from a icon pack Android game. It says that the person who posted these doesn't own the app, so all of the credit goes to the developer. I looked and I looked and I wasn't able to find licensing information for these, but I will share them. I think as long as you're not modifying them or putting them on t-shirts or selling them, you know, it's if you're kind of using them for your own personal terminal background or your wallpaper, maybe that's not the worst thing. But I did want to post this app as well as the developer who created it. So this is the Rad 80s pack. If you want to support the artist here, there's a pro version of it for $1.99. And that's in the Android App Store. And then I will link to the developer as well. His name is Nate Wren. I don't know if Nate was the one who created all of these backgrounds. I can only assume. So just wanted to call him out and give him credit. I think this particular background pack is pretty cool. And this is the one that I used for my terminal background. I love the night sky and the purple coloring, and I think it looks really great. So I think that's everything, folks. You can kind of see let me show you. Yeah, this is kind of what these terminal colors look like. This is Darkula and this background. I would probably tweak with the settings a little bit to make it blend in a little bit more with my background color so that all of this was easier to read. But this is all the kind of the formula for making your terminal you know, customized and unique to you, containing all of the tools that you need to be productive day to day. I know some folks might think, you know, maybe I spent a lot of time doing this, but it was all incremental. You know, a lot of these changes have come over the past 4, 5, 6 years, and it makes me happy looking at a bright, fun, colorful terminal. And because I'm in it all day long, I think it just, you know, it improves my mood and it makes my job a little bit better, and I'm pretty into it. So thank you all so much for coming to my first stream. I mean, this was, I won't lie, it was pretty scary. I'm pretty introverted, and so talking for an hour wasn't easy, but y'all stuck with me, and I was super thrilled to see so many of you active in chat. Please follow me on Twitch. And then before we go, I have just like one thing to ask you. If you use all of these tips to upgrade your terminal, if you could please at me on Twitter with a screenshot. I would love to see what y'all have been up to, what changes you've made. I'll post a link to my Twitter now, so you can follow me, at me, and then I promise by the end of next week, I will have a blog post out with my ZHRC and my dot files and like everything that we've talked about today just in one place. Cool. thanks for following Top Flavor. I appreciate it. And thank you all for coming today. Happy Tuesday. And I will see y'all next time. Bye, folks. Thanks for watching.